Ben Pickett is a second-generation owner and operator of Joey's Carpet Cleaning and Microseal, a family business serving Central Kentucky since 1980. With over 27 years in the industry, starting as a kid tagging along on jobs and earning his first professional certification at just 12 years old, Ben is now a certified expert in carpet, upholstery, tile, odor removal, and water damage restoration. Passionate about both his craft and community, he's an active member of the Building Industry Association, a business mastermind group, and a dedicated advocate for the Hearing and Speech Center. When he's not working, Ben enjoys golf, spending time with his wife Tiffany, their 4 children, and coaching their sports teams. Ben, we're glad to have you on, my friend.
Thank you for
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, Ben. Good to have you. All right, Ben, as we get started here, I want to know real quick, if animals could talk, who do you think would be the rudest?
Rudest animal?
The rudest animal.
Has to be a goose.
Goose. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because they're always interjecting and chasing you. So I think that's an obvious answer. I have to go with the goose.
Yep. Get that?
Geese.
Gotta love the geese. All right. What about worst buy one, get one free deal?
Worst?
If you could envision one.
Oh, like I could just like make one up?
Yeah, you can just make one up.
You said you're going to be some ice sprinkles. Huh? You really...
We want you to think a little bit about these.
Yeah, worst buy one, get one. Enema? Yeah, probably wouldn't want
Okay.
to get 2 of those. So maybe we'll go that direction.
That's great. All right. And last icebreaker here, and then Eric will head us off on the actual content. All right. What is the most chaotic food combination that you personally really enjoy? So for some people, like my wife is peanut butter and pizza for some reason. But yes, what do you like that's kind of out of wild?
I've actually I like peanut butter on a cheeseburger.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
It's a specific kind of burger. Mr. Brew's Tap House randomly does a specialty burger that has peanut butter jam on it, and it's kind of a mix, a different take on a burger, but I feel like it's a little out there.
Nice. Okay. Good to know. I don't know when we'll need to blackmail you with that, but we'll keep that. Good stuff. All right, Eric, I'll turn it over to you. You jump in.
Your parents started Joey's Carpet Cleaning in 1980.
Correct.
And you've been involved since you were 5 years old.
Yes.
What are some of the earliest memories of working with them, and how did those experiences with working with your parents impact your work ethic and like impacted you being there in that entrepreneur type of journey with them?
So for me, my youngest memories would go one of 2 directions. So on flood jobs, a lot of times you have to check those whenever you can get to them. And so maybe like later in the afternoon, I was out of childcare, so they would have me tagging along. So I remember going and helping check readings on walls, holding the meter and telling them what the number said, as well as we used to use a practice you've probably seen before where they stick a fan under some carpet and it floats like a bouncy house.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a practice that we really use anymore, but getting to help float carpets was a really fun thing to do as a child because you thought you were making a bouncy house. The other thing I really remember early is my father's an instructor. So he teaches those certification courses. So one of the courses that he teaches is advanced spot and stain courses to teach people how to remove stains. Well, we would have to take squares of carpet, put mustard and ketchup and barbecue sauce and chocolate and oil and make stains on carpets. I remember helping the stained carpets.
That'd have been fun.
And so those are good memories for sure. But I think really, when you own a business, we grow up in a family-owned business. I think I was ingrained in that there's not really, even though we try now to do better about time management, there's no business hours. They're all business hours growing up. So, I mean, around the dinner tables work, around the daytimes work. And so I think I just grew up that work was such a normal thing that I never wanted to get away from it. I just felt like it was a normal part of my day. And so even now, like I probably have a little less work-life balance than I should because I enjoy working so much because it's just part of what I do. Even though, I put in a lot of effort to make sure my kids have plenty of time and do things. But I think that if you've not grown up in that, if you've not been around a work cycle that never ends, I don't think that hard for people to transition into business ownership if they're used to being able to clock out. Because when you're the business owner, you never clock out. And so I think that's probably
Yeah.
an advantage growing up in small businesses. I was never looking for the end of the workday because the work is done when the work.
I think also going into being an entrepreneur for most of your life, I mean, for me personally, and then having kids and having a family, it's almost the opposite kind of, because now you almost have to figure out how to have some kind of work-life balance in that aspect, right? Because it's like the opposite learning curve in terms of growing up that way and then getting into entrepreneurship. Now it's the opposite. How did you approach that or figure that out?
Well, I think I gained context as well. So my father was a traveling instructor. My mom was helping run a lot of the operations. So there was plenty of times you get home from school when you're a teenager or preteen, and you're home alone because everybody's out working. It's long days, and so I think that made me aware of wanting to be present as much as I can, especially in these young years for my kids. Um, Obviously sports and everything else. I have to make a diligent effort to be in attendance, and also to know that no matter how tired I am, if I get home, it's a new day. You have to shut off the how tired you are from your work day and turn on your personal day because Bo, one of my twins, loves to throw ball. So it doesn't matter how long the day is. As soon as I get home, can we go outside and throw? Can you pitch to me? And so I think understanding that even though you're tired, you just have to kind of be tired later. That's learned though that I don't want to wish away these years.
Right.
Sure.
I'm still in the superhero phase of being a dad where they're excited that I come home. And so until that goes away, I'm going to hold on to it as tightly as I can.
Really I totally get you. A friend of mine refers to that as clocking in for your family shift. So, he'll send him a text, hey, bro, about to start my family shift. I'll hit you up later. It's okay. I get it. So
it's awesome.
Totally understand that. Totally get that. When you were talking about, creating the stains and everything. Now, you got your first certification when you were 12.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, did you at that age, did you know that you wanted to take over the family business? Because man, when I was 12, it was all about 12 Power Rangers, definitely Power Rangers. Gotten out of Ninja Turtles and we were in Power Ranger phase at that point in time.
Real quick. And I would say no, I didn't really know. It was certainly kind of suggested that, that I could run the business and do these things. And honestly, it was more out of a sense of duty that I moved into really the operational role. Because, in a family business, you're one of the supporting legs of a table, right? So if you are a big part of the operation that you kind of consider deviating, you have this concern that, is that going to affect the structure for the rest of the family, for the rest of the business? And so for me, ownership and really going into it was more out of a sense of almost not in an onerous way, but a sense of obligation. Like it was kind of like what the family needed to go in that direction. But what I really benefited from was because I learned at such a young age. So while first certification was age 12, I was learning some of the very technical parts of what we did at ages 7 and 8.
Sure.
So in structural drying, it's psychrometrics. That's air to water mixtures, and we use that for drying out buildings. And that's the stuff I was learning when I was 7. And so I would be tagging along in the car when my dad was training our water damage manager at the time. And so he's asking questions, and the story is always that I'm in the backseat going, "Ooh, I know the answer. Ooh, I want to answer." And so even when I attended that class at 12, I probably had a lot more of the technical knowledge and half the people that were in that class because I'd been hearing it for years. So it was to the point, even at age 12, the adults in the class didn't want to raise their hands and answer questions because they were intimidated by me being in the room because they didn't want to not know the answer that the 12-year-old knew. Of course, and just to put into context, when I was 12, I was like 6'3" and 270 pounds and looked like.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
you could pass for a little bit older anyway.
Yeah, and that's, I think, even though I was allowed to tag along with my dad and my mom on the jobs when I was young, like I actually started working on the truck when I was 12, and I didn't really get any pushback on that because I looked like I was 16 or 17 at the time. So nobody thought that there was anything odd about me being on a job site because I looked much older than I was.
That's great. I'm curious from like a business standpoint, what you might have learned growing up in a family business that really like was beneficial to you to know? Because as someone who got, like Eric talked about, went into entrepreneurship after a career, we learn all of our stuff, firsthand most of the time. So I'm curious what it's like being raised in an entrepreneurial family, just from the business side of things. What are business principles you learned probably earlier than most adults do, and how has that shaped how you're running things today?
I think that there's a self-sacrificing side of being a business owner that most people go into business ownership with rose-colored glasses, and they think that's going to be so awesome and it's going to
Yeah.
be so easy. And
Okay.
I think that seeing firsthand, like when cash flow is tight and money's going paid to everybody else, but you as the business owner, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't have any of those misconceptions going into business because I fully understood where the challenges were and also where the rewards were. Because obviously it's not all bad, but you do it
Yeah.
because you're building for something else. But I think it's a huge advantage because I think that people look at a business plan or they look at the franchise model and they say, this is great. I'm going to make this much money my first
Right.
year and everything's going to just happen the way it's supposed to. And I'm not saying it never does, but
Yeah.
being a
It's pretty
business is
rare.
going to bring you a lot of unexpected surprises. I think that was a huge advantage for me growing up. I also think um, growing up where I was already so deeply ingrained to have a passion for the reputation of the business and understanding how important it is that you care about what you do. Like it's not just
Yeah.
widgets, but it's that your reputation. You are your business, and so that's something that you learn at a young age because you have to take pride in it. Um, and I think that those are certainly advantages from growing up in a business.
Yeah. I think that's also something that, that shows good parenting too, to be
Yeah.
passed on to your, you know, child, to be working side by side and seeing the integrity and all of that being made. So when the transition happened for you to take over, then how did that look, and how did the like monetization? So I'm sure, because I come from my parents. I grew up growing up with my parents being entrepreneurs, growing up in their business. There, I would suggest things. Hey, we should get on this. We should start doing this. No, no, this old system works fine. It's been working for years and years. This is the way it should be. And it's like, how did you manage the transition of trying to monetize it and then also take over?
So I mean, a lot of that came in waves. I would say, like, I was able to have input as far as directions of services at a pretty young age because I was the one that was out in the field more. And so I had kind of the ground, knowledge of what was happening or what we were seeing in homes. And so that was an advantage because, I wanted us to get into hard floors because I saw the trends moving away from wall to wall carpet. I wanted us to
A
have a
good
rock
point.
facility because the first thing everybody does when they get hard floors is go buy a bunch of area rugs to cover their hard floors back up with carpet again.
True.
Um, and so that same thing goes with the pushes that we've had in the last several years for air duct cleaning and pressure washing. Seeing what our customers need. So I've always been a little bit more minded towards wanting to continue to add services, but I had a supportive audience for that. I was willing to take the leap to go start learning how to do it because excellence was always kind of the standard for us. If we were going to do it, you would see a lot of people. You kind of think back to Hardee's, wanted to be everything to everybody. So you could go get a burrito, you could get fried chicken, you could get all these things, and all of a sudden they weren't really good at anything. And
Yeah.
that became their downfall. So our biggest focus was as we added things, we wanted to be equally good at each thing that we added. Because otherwise there's no point
Mm.
in adding it. Adding it just to add it isn't a very productive thing to do. So it's one of those that's a mixed bag. It's great to have diversity of service because your clients' needs change. And you open yourself. Maybe you've got someone that has a very loyal relationship to somebody for one of your services. That doesn't mean you can't fill the gaps and provide other services for them. We work a lot with other people in our industry, and we love that relationship. We don't need to take their part. My running saying is always that we love pie. We don't have to have the whole pie. We take a bite of pie or a little slice of pie,
True.
and so we're happy
That's
to
great.
in wherever in somebody's business model or somebody's vendor model. So if they need us to take care of, even if we would love to take care of all of their services, that doesn't mean we don't want to do one of them. And so those are certain things. Now, on the technology side, I always kind of feel like I'm an old soul because I kind of miss paper invoices and clipboards, because I felt more connected with my customer when I was writing as we're talking than I do than when I'm punching a screen. I still think that technology creates some distance that I don't like. It obviously also creates some simplicity because it's entered one time, and then people at the office have the information, and everything is input as opposed to before. It was handwritten, and it was long, and then we filed the paper copy as a backup, and we had to keep two separate paper copies. You know, so obviously, there's tons of efficiencies that are gained with technology. That doesn't mean that I co-sign that they're all great. Some things that on the experience side, and that's kind of always been our thing, is we say that people actually aren't wanting to buy carpet cleaning, or they want the experience of having those services provided. And I think
Okay.
some of the technology maybe takes away some of the experience. I mean, like, we're not super obsessive with technology as far as all of the efficiencies that we could add, but obviously, you're looking at where AI comes in and the tools that you can put in to have information available for your technicians, available for your customers. So technology is obviously evolving, and you have to be integrating it. But at the same time, we don't want to take the experience with it. I want to have a person answer your phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I hear from a lot of people that our age and younger that if a machine picks up, they're immediately kind of on the fence. Like, am I going to stay on this? Am I going to
Yeah.
fit this conversation? And while it's probably better than it going to a voicemail, if you've got like a secondary system. But I think the businesses that have chosen to cut out a live person answering the phones, like I think that you'll see that come back.
Interesting.
Good point.
It's funny you say like those people might be missing out and coming back to that, because I have noticed. Yeah, I can tell you, like, every time I've called a number and somebody has picked up, like, even if it's a restaurant, right? Like, and they could easily have a, hey, menu of options just to give themselves a bit more time. It is so, like, the automated system is so pervasive that when somebody live answers right away, you're just like, oh, heck, like, I wasn't even expecting somebody to pick up the phone right now. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a great value add right out of the gate because it's so unexpected. You're just like, oh, wow, you're real. Like, this is cool.
Yeah. What's the trend now? People are buying dumb phones, like actually going back to buying flip phones.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're trying to, detach from technology. So, I mean, I just think that I think you got to toe the line. You want to have the technology that people want access to, but you want the personal experience that people are longing for.
Yes.
True. Yeah, I think the worst part is, I know this for like chat, which AI can be really great for, to answer simple questions based off of the knowledge. Like, I don't know, maybe an example would be, should my carpet be cleaned, or can I get the stain out? Do I need a cleaning company? And I think even offering something like that, where it almost makes you come across as a brand that's like, yeah, we're 100% in on you. We want to help you, but if you don't absolutely need a cleaning, if there's another way to do it, then yeah, I want to help you, with that information, but still call us if you need any more help. I think a situation like that, you're offering a quick solution, but you're also offering that experience side of it too, to where it's like, you can still call us and we'll come over and get it out.
Yeah. So we've been talking about doing a custom GPT to where we can control all the information that it draws from, because the problem with AI is when somebody says, "Well, how do you?"
Everywhere.
Well, they might pull some information from a YouTube video that is not very well informed, or they might pull
Yeah.
it from a news place. So, we want to do our own where we can use like our industry standards, and then also our own database. My father had a radio show for years where he was Dr. Stain, and they would call in and people would ask spotting advice. And so, Consumer Reports had a book, How to Clean Anything, and he wrote the spot cleaning section for Consumer Reports book for carpet cleaning.
That's cool.
And so, like, we have all the knowledge basis, but being able to create a custom GPT where we can make sure that the AI knows the qualifying questions, because the answer changes based on the type of textile. And so, if you're not asking qualifying questions, then the answer may have been right sometimes. But being able to use an AI that knows it has to ask questions for clarity, and being able to program that in, I think is going to be an important thing, because what works on your nylon carpet isn't going to be good for your silk. And so,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it burned a hole. Oh no.
yeah, it doesn't mean bad advice on how to get that stain out. It was just bad for that textile.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. But that's a great example of of what you were just saying in terms of merging a good customer experience with your existing with technology and modernizing. I like that.
Yeah.
Good. So I'm curious across all of this, Ben, tell me about an experience or maybe a set of experiences that hasn't gone well. Like if it could be by nature of moving into a second gen business, your parents have done this and now you're doing it. Something maybe it was just friction or just a decision that you made that empirically wasn't great. Like what have been some mistakes you could have learned from or you have learned from up to this point in business?
So I either made so few that I can't think of them, or I make so many that they don't stand out. Like that's like what I was yesterday.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that one of the hardest things about scaling for us has been preventative maintenance. It's been a very difficult transition to grow and grow where you can keep your equipment properly maintained and on the road and keep up with demand. And so that's been an ongoing struggle for us. So I think, and scale, I think comes in a lot of struggles, right? People scale and they maybe have a hard time with how do you scale to create enough business or how do you scale to be able to perform enough business. And while those are each, struggles, but for us, I mean, we sell the work, but then you create such a strain on your equipment that then you start to create lag where you have downtime because of breakdowns. And we are very fortunate to have extra trucks so that we aren't stuck dead in the water when that happens. There's a lot of owner operators that they'll have one piece of equipment broke down and they literally are out of business until that piece of equipment's back on the road. We're very fortunate that we're proactive in having additional equipment, but like it's kind of like the wrong way of preventative maintenance is we're going to buy more trucks so that when they break down, then we have time to fix them, as opposed to being able to implement a structure that prevents the breakdown in the first place.
Right.
And some of that goes back to personnel. It's hard to find the right fit for somebody that has those skills. If somebody's mechanically inclined, that's maybe a position that's hard to bring in house for the level that you want, unless maybe we need 25 trucks instead of 14 trucks to justify that workload for that position. Because at some point it's that diminishing return where to get the person you need, you're overpaying for that person.
True.
So I think that's a hard balance. It's certainly one that we constantly struggle with. And I mean, I don't know any business owner that doesn't constantly kind of rake their hands over what they're doing with marketing. Did we waste a ton of money on that marketing campaign that we didn't have to do? I mean, that's a question that we'll always circle back to. And then you look at the overall and say, well, overall we grew. So maybe it contributed kind of as a secondary form of marketing and it was one touch. And, so we've tried to quit doing multiple new things at once so that we can see if a new thing is moving the needle. But even that is difficult because some things take longer to start working. And so, I mean, anybody that really holds the secrets to those marketing answers, I mean, they've got the golden goose. But
I think marketing is the question. Well, first of all, marketing is always evolving. So what worked last month might not work this month. And then you have trends and you have so many other things that go into affecting people's decisions economically and then just overall hype and everything. I can see it being really, really hard. I mean, it always is to find something that will consistently work every time. And then of course, tracking it, like you said, is a whole nother thing because you might put in 3 months worth of marketing in one thing and not see the results until 3 months later. And that is like, that can be extremely frustrating. What are some things that you found that help, like, I guess, consistency in that marketing realm? I mean, I'm guessing you've tried lots of different types of marketing. Based off of your own experience with it, what are some things that have worked the best, or at least the most consistent for you, based off of what you've already kind of tested out?
So forever, we were a word of mouth only type model. And that works great if you've got, one or two trucks. The bigger you get, it's a lot bigger machine. And so word of mouth doesn't work quite that fast. But I think it's still the right type of marketing. So I think about peer review, Angie's List, Facebook groups where people are seeking the next door. I think that those all are high impact. For us, those still work really well because people want kind of a warm recommendation for the service. On commercial basis, in-person networking has truly been highly effective for us because people want to do business with people they know. And so it's one thing for them to have heard of you, but once they put a face to the name and they understand what type of person you are, or they know who they're calling if there's a problem. Because I think, half the time when you're buying, I think a good percentage of what you're thinking about is like, well, like, what if it doesn't go good? Is this a company that is going to still show up or stand behind their word?
Sure.
Everything else, so that's very hard to do if you don't have a face to the name.
Yeah.
Just guessing. But if you've met the people or you really know their company values, I think that goes a long way. And that's certainly, we always describe it as more farming than shopping because that takes a lot of time to build those relationships. Whereas your Google ads are always important because, that's where people are buying at that time and everything works together. If you haven't been doing things where they see you or know who you are, and then your ad shows up on Google, I don't think they're going to click your name anyway. And so, but at the same time, if they know you and your name doesn't show up when they're on Google, they may not scroll till they find you. So,
True.
you've got to kind of do both. Like, I don't think you can just Google your way to the top, but I think that if you're not doing some type of Google spin, you're missing the people because people want to buy now. And we have a lot of lazy consumers. And so I do think being in those top few results matters, even if they know who you are. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's like you said, the first thing that even if you give them a business card, that's the first thing they'll go do is just Google to see, are you even on the first page? Do you have reviews?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you a real business or is just a one-man show?
Right.
When you think about, you are, you're second generation in the business, any of your kids showing any interest, or are they still a little young? Or, how do you feel about the possibility of, one of your mini-me's taking over?
We won't tell anybody if you've got the twins certified already too. I know it's a different era than maybe when you so we could just delete this excerpt if you've already got the boys running a truck.
No, the boys have come in and washed rugs. So we have a rug washing plant now, which we never had growing up. And that's like those videos you see on TikTok where the people are there with the boots on and doing all the stuff. So the boys love washing rugs. And
that's cool.
Bo is the one that is a little bit more analytical and serious. And if I had to pick who I could maybe get certified younger than I got certified right now, I would say the money's on Bo. But they all talk about who's going to run the business, which is funny because you're talking about, the boys just turned 8 on Friday. Millie turns 6 in August. And we'll joke and say, well, Millie's going to be your boss. And the boys get so upset that Millie's going to be in charge. And so
that's awesome.
As of right now, it sounds good, but I certainly want to keep their options very open to whatever they want to do. I want it to be something that they may love and choose to do, but I don't want there to be a sense of obligation to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. So kind of wrapping up with that, like, tell me what do you see best case scenario for Joey's, like, down the road? Do you guys have any, like, exciting expansions that, man, like in a decade or two, like this is really where you'd like things to be? What is that looking like? What are you hoping things wind up with?
Well, we've hit a point now where it's really going through and taking all the systems that made us good at the work and then expanding those systems for more growth. So, I think that, we're really hitting a stride where, we could see like 2x years, 3x years, like really big growth years. And then I think that goes into potentially looking at what franchise models look like. And we look at what Louisville market looks like, or we look at, first looking at locations that we would have. But I think that there's certainly a place. But then you have to kind of build things for that model. So a name change, it seems inevitable. We've been avoiding it for a while, but we started out as a carpet cleaning company, so we're Joey's Carpet Care. But now we do so many things. So before those things get too far, we have to kind of address that we need a broader brand that addresses more of the services and is more inclusive, because we'll have people that have been our customers forever. Oh, I didn't know you did anything but carpet. And
sure.
And so that's certainly one of the things I do. But we're having we're just continuing to buy equipment, continuing to expand what we can do and how we can do it. I don't like being dependent on other companies for rentals and things. Like right now, we need a lift for a project, and nobody in the state has the type of lift I want. And so I'm like, well, I have to buy that lift because I want that lift so that we can have it for the type of projects that we want to have. And so sometimes that you're constantly reinvesting in your future to increase your capacity, to increase your service offerings, to be better at what you're doing. But I mean, to me, that's all exciting. Like you know, I enjoy seeing our abilities change because we've added more capabilities, whether it's through trucks or capacity in that regard, or the types of equipment we run in the rug shop. Like just seeing those things, to think about the things we can do now versus what we can do when I was a kid. Like we washed rugs when I was a kid, nothing compared to how we wash rugs now. And so
Sure.
I think that's always being aware that no matter how good you think you are now, like your ceiling may be so much higher. Because we were perceived as being really good at cleaning rugs back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like when I look at the process and the things that we can do now, like there's no comparison.
That's really cool.
Yeah, wrapping up here, what advice would you give somebody? What are the top three things someone who just took over their mom and pop's business, whether it be carpet cleaning or a cleaning company or a gas station or whatever it is, what would be the top three things that you would just like on a higher level encourage them to do in terms of getting excited, looking at the future? Because a lot of times when you inherit a business or you get transferred or whatever, it can be a little bit daunting. Like you might not, I mean, in your case, it doesn't sound like that, but I know some other people that I've talked to where it's like, oh, I just want to sell this because they don't see the future or they don't have the same feeling for it. What would you give to them that maybe are overwhelmed and don't really know what direction or what they should do about it? Or maybe the business is failing and they want to try to turn.
Well, there's a few scenarios there, obviously. I think that when you're looking at a legacy business, I think it's really important to acknowledge and see where the value that already exists is. If you've got a business that's already been around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that says something about that business. Even if that business is now struggling, the fact that it made it that long, there's a value proposition that exists there. And I think it's important that unless you've just decided that the business you've taken over has no brand, you need to figure out what kind of helped you get that far. Like, was it the service? Was it the quality? Was it the location? But I think that sometimes people feel the urge to remake everything. I got to reinvent the wheel because now it's mine. And I think that that's foolish. If you have a good foundation, you should be thrilled. Like I'm extremely fortunate that we had a great foundation. My parents had worked so hard. I mean, my father still teaches to this day that foundation to build upon. You can't build a skyscraper on pebbles. So I think acknowledging that you've already got a basis to work off of, and then being smart enough to lean into what you have doesn't mean you don't look for changes or opportunities. If you're new to it, I also think seeking coaching opportunities, whether that's other business owners that are willing to just mentor and doing me and Aaron have done mastermind type groups before. I think having people that you can listen to or express your concerns to that are dealing with the same things. I think you can feel like you're on an island as a business owner and that your employees can never understand. No matter how much you try to tell them, they can't understand that what you're dealing with as a business owner because it's a different thing. And so I think that finding peers or business coaches, somebody that can help them work through those things if they're a new business owner, and that is kind of deciding where their goal is. If your goal is not to keep and maintain that business, then you should. Maybe your business coach is going to help you with an exit strategy. Maybe your business needs to be built up to be sold to somebody. But thinking that you're going to sell it by neglecting it and not wanting to deal with it is not a good standard either. I think you have to know what your plan is, and it's perfectly fine if that's not your dream. If you're second generation, they built the business for your future. It doesn't mean that business is your future. And so I think that being willing to unshackle yourself if that's kind of your fear, unless your parents told you, their dying wish that you can never close forever. That's obviously not why they normally have started a business. So I think that that's a big piece of advice. It's okay if you want to grow it to get rid of it. But I think you just have to have a plan. If you don't know what you're trying to grow it for, I think knowing your why really matters.
Good.
That's
Seems
good.
like a very measured approach to things. It's good.
So,
And this has been a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you jumping on here. This has been a lot of cool perspective, hearing from somebody in your experience, having done this as a second gen, and I'm really excited to see where you go. I think it'd be cool to have you back on here in a couple of years when you guys are looking at opening some new stuff and possibly getting that franchise model. If that works out, it'll be really cool to see where you guys go. So great stuff here.
yeah, thank you all for having me.
Fun.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it, man.
Have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you down the road, brother.
Yes, we will.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.